Welcome back, everyone. Much of the material in the Quran is simply borrowed, without much alteration. This is what we see in the Legend of Alexander, the stories of Abraham and the idols, and the Adam and Iblis cycles, to name a few. In other cases, the Quran seriously distorts its sources or misconstrues them, or both. In this video, we'll look at the topic of intercession first briefly with Abraham and then more thoroughly with Moses. As we compare the Torah and Quran, I think you'll be interested to see what the Quran omits and tries to explain away. Many will recall Abraham's intercession for Sodom in Genesis 18. This is one of the earliest functions of a prophet in the Torah. It's important to note that Abraham's intercession is grounded in what he knows of God. Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? Intercession is specifically connected to the role of a prophet a few chapters later, when God speaks to Abimelech about Abraham. Now then, Abimelech, return the man, referring to Abraham's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. The prophet will intercede. Intercession is an important function of a prophet from the beginning, and many will recall the intercession of later prophets in the Hebrew Bible as well. Turning to the Exodus, Moses' intercession for the people plays a major role in both the theology and the literary structure of the book. Notice carefully how the golden calf episode breaks up the instructions and building of the tabernacle. Moses' intercession in chapter 33 is especially critical. The future of the nation is threatened because of their idolatry, but Moses intercedes. The covenant is renewed, and the construction of the tabernacle begins. Moses' intercession is the link that connects the instructions for and building of the tabernacle. This is critical to see. Without Moses' intercession, we would have the instructions for building the tabernacle, the great sin of idolatry, and then the building of the tabernacle would resume. This would be theologically incoherent, given God's statements about holiness and the function of the tabernacle as God's presence among his people. Note that sometimes Moses' intercession is bold, but it doesn't harm his relationship with God. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. Richard Middleton comments, the purpose of Moses' challenge, referring to Exodus 33, is, as George Coates puts it, to persuade God to pursue the initial aim, to act in consistency with his own promise. Moses' boldness is thus rooted in a discernment of God's fundamental character and intent. As we saw a few minutes ago, Abraham's intercession and Moses' intercession have this in common. They're both grounded in God's character that has been revealed to them. God, out of his slowness to anger and steadfast love, welcomed Moses' intercession and responded to it, as he did with many other prophets. And this exchange between God and Moses allowed Moses to enter into a deeper relationship, even a friendship, with the God of Israel. So theologically, intercession is important. And even in the literary context, as we've seen, Moses' intercession is the link that connects the sections on the tabernacle, a subject so important that it spans about a dozen chapters at the end of the book of Exodus. So that's enough of an introduction to the importance of intercession in the role of biblical prophets. Now let's turn to the Quran, beginning with the episode of the golden calf. And when Moses said to his people, my people, surely you have done yourselves evil by taking the calf. So turn to your Creator in repentance and kill one another. That will be better for you in the sight of your Creator. Notice that the intercession of the Quranic Moses is omitted. The Quranic Moses speaks to the people, telling them to execute the idolaters and repent. But the Quranic Moses does not intercede for the people. As we've seen, we can compare this to the account in Exodus, where Moses implores God, even offering his own life for the people. But this omission doesn't just happen once. Looking at other places in the Quran where the Exodus story is told shows more of the same pattern. In Surah 7, Moses asks for forgiveness for himself and his brother. but there's no mention of intercession for the people of Israel, again, contrary to what we find in the book of Exodus. And the pattern continues. Surah 5 tells the story of Israel spying out the promised land. The end result of the reports is that the people are too afraid to enter Canaan. The paralyzing fear of battle that the people had is a perfect chance for the Quran to repeat its frequent criticism of people who do not fight. Then, the Quran, again, omits Moses' intercession. The Israelites said, "Moses, surely we shall never enter it as long as they remain in it. So you and your Lord go, and both of you fight. Surely we will be sitting here." He said, "My Lord, surely I have no control over anyone but myself and my brother. Make a separation between us and this wicked people." But in the book of Numbers, Moses intercedes. He said, "Please pardon the iniquity of this people, according to the greatness of your steadfast love, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now." And we note again that the biblical Moses' intercession is based on his knowledge of God, according to the greatness of your steadfast love. Note that the Quran doesn't just omit Moses' intercession. It has Moses ask for a separation between himself and the people. This is a clear error on the part of the Quran because Moses and the people have been a package deal from the beginning, as Moses' intercession in chapter 33 of Exodus makes clear. And Moses said to God, "If your presence will not go with me, do not bring us up from here." But there's another problem. As we've seen, the Quran not only omits Moses' intercession, but it has him separate himself from the people. However, there's another biblical prophet who did this, separated himself from the people instead of interceding for them, and the God of the Bible had him replaced. At a low point in his ministry, Elijah approached God, saying, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away." Notice, Elijah elevates himself above the people. "I," he says, "even I only am left." In verse 18, God corrects him. There are 7,000 who have not bowed to Baal. Elijah, as it turns out, was not the only one. But he had ceased to identify with the people. He ceased to intercede for them, separating himself from them, like the Quranic Moses. In turn, God gives some instructions, and part of those instructions are to replace himself with another. "And Elisha you shall anoint to be prophet in your place." Reuven Kimmelman comments on Elijah's encounter with God in this passage. Bemoaning Israel's failings, Elijah seeks the release of death, not as a Mosaic act of solidarity, but as an act of resignation. In failing to rise to Israel's defense, Elijah proves himself unworthy of the prophetic mantle. He is thus sent back to anoint a prophetic successor, the only prophet to do so in the whole Bible. Many of you will have noticed the striking similarity between Elijah and the Quranic Moses, who said, "Make a separation between us and this wicked people." In the same way, Elijah had separated himself from the people of Israel. Failing to intercede for the people is apparently not a virtue of biblical prophets, as the biblical Moses knew well, but the Quranic Moses did not. If the biblical Moses had acted like the Quranic Moses, it seems that the God of the Bible would have had him replaced. But stripping the biblical Abraham and Moses of their intercessory roles is, at least in part, to bring them into consistency with the repeated assertions in the Quran that messengers are only sent as bringers of good news and warners. Intercession is not one of their functions, and numerous statements in the Quran diminish the very concept of it. Let's take a brief detour. First, recall that Muslims claim Muhammad was a prophet like Moses. But prophets and messengers in the Quran are all stock, flat, boring, predictable characters. They bring good news and warn, and then the people of their generation are destroyed and replaced. And then a new Quranic messenger is sent to warn. Then the people of that generation are destroyed and replaced. And then a new Quranic messenger arises and is sent to warn. Okay, you get the point. but they're all the same Quranic cardboard cutouts. They have different names, but they're all alike, like nobody is in actual real life. So when Muslims claim Muhammad is a prophet like Moses, they're apparently claiming similarity to a stereotypical, stock, flat, Quranic messenger, the same as all the rest, which isn't much of a claim at all. Second, to make this claim about Muhammad and Moses, Muslims rely on later tradition, where the lowly Muhammad of the Quran, the plain Warner, morphed into Super Muhammad with the help of accumulated Muslim tradition. Then they use all those legends with details found nowhere in the Quran to compare Muhammad to the Moses of the Bible, which they argue at the same time is corrupted, thus contradicting the Quran at the same time. This is deeply incoherent, to put it nicely. Now let's go back to the beginning. We started this video talking about the intercession of Abraham, so that's a good place to finish up. As you may have guessed, Abraham's intercession for Sodom, that's omitted in the Quran as well. When our messengers brought Abraham the good news, they said, "Surely we are going to destroy the people of this town, for its people are evildoers." He said, "Surely Lot is in it." That's a far cry from Abraham's intercession in Genesis 18. To push this a bit further, some of you may be wondering about all of those Jewish legends about Abraham and the idols that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. What does the Quran do with the intercession for Abraham's father in those passages? In the Quran, Abraham does ask for forgiveness for his father, the idol worshiper. However, unfortunately, Surah 9 clarifies that this intercession was only because of a promise Abraham had made. It is not for the prophet and those who believe to ask forgiveness for the idolaters, even though they may be family. Abraham did so, as we said, because of a promise, and finally, in the end, the Quranic Abraham disowned his father. At first glance, this verse, which prohibits intercession, causes one to suspect that the Quran is bringing the legends of Abraham into agreement with its own theology, as if these stories from Jewish tradition worked their way into the Quran before their content could be redacted to suit later Islamic theology. To summarize, we've seen that the biblical Abraham and Moses intercede, as do many others in the Hebrew Bible. Intercession is an important part of the role of biblical prophets. Intercession of biblical prophets is based on what God has revealed to them about himself. Intercession is consistently omitted in the Quran in the case of Moses, or explained away in the case of Abraham. And the Quranic Moses, in separating himself from the people, acted like the biblical Elijah, who was replaced. In the Hebrew Bible, God's personal revelation of himself is deeply connected to the intercession of prophets, and of course, if we were to keep reading, to priests as well. The Quran picks a few biblical figures, conforms them to its flat, stereotypical character profile, and then presents them to the reader in a way that's distorted and disconnected from the original context that was known long before the Quran was written. The Quranic Moses and Abraham, like the Quranic Jesus, are simply literary creations, cobbled together from a variety of sources, and then made to conform to the theology of the Quran's author. Speaking of theology, given the clear ad hoc constructs of the Quranic characters themselves, why shouldn't we think that the God of the Quran is just a literary creation as well? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.